And you wrap up the book with a chapter called Reflections, which is just phenomenal. And you know, looking back at kind of what you learned there, and I'm going to hit some of the parts of it because there's so much that everybody can learn from this. Going here to the book, our closed society subsisted. We ate, slept, breathed. We laughed and we cried. We were frustrated and we were gratified. We were embarrassed and we were proud. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, particular patterns of behavior edged into our daily activities and came until they became folkways. There was nothing unusual about a man pacing the floor for hours like a caged tiger. No notice was given to the man lifting his soup bowl and licking it spotless. There was no stigma in baring our souls to one another. We had our own mores and sense of propriety. Our microcosm was a petri dish containing its own strains and culture. Although we had not been hand-picked, we were, for the most part, out of the same mold, that of the professional officer and pilot. We were unique prisoners who acted differently from those of Korea or World War II. We had been exposed to a different selection process and a new era of lifestyles. Gathered together in a dubious fraternity of Hanoi skydivers, we were a group of cocky individuals. We knew we were the best. Stripped of personal possessions, of million-dollar airplanes, of rank and prestige, we suddenly found ourselves at the bottom of a dark pit. We could no longer look outward. Our only alternative was to make the best of what we had. And when you have so little, and for you guys to take that attitude, then there's so many people, you know, and I hear from people all over the world that will reach out to me and talk about the situation that they're in, a bad situation and a negative situation. And, you know, it's hearing from people like you that makes everyone realize I need to make the best of what I have. You know, I need to make the best of the situation I'm in, because if you guys could do it, anyone could do it.
You know, again, you know, this sounds like grand high-level philosophy, but it was almost a survival technique. You know, it was almost, hey, this is the way that we can make it through this, is believing in the future and believing in ourselves. And I look back on that 6 years, and it was probably the most important 6 years of my life because I came through this silly experience with this kind of discipline and this kind of thought process that, hey, it's not the hand you're dealt, it's the way you play the hand you're dealt. And you may not have 4 aces this round, you know. you may have trash, but if you play it right, it can still be a winning hand.
A little bit of talk about you coming home. Back to the book. My first impressions of home were not too encouraging. Newspapers and magazines were devoted largely to the drug problem, permissiveness, the energy crisis, abounding crime rate, and eroding family structures. I was worried from a selfish viewpoint. I had sacrificed many years for my country, and I didn't want some young whippersnappers destroying it. But I decided to give myself a 1-year moratorium before taking a firm stand on any of my observations. And I found that the news media in particular had exaggerated the negative. I didn't have my wallet stolen, nor did I see opium dens or gang wars when I visited schools. Instead, I was pleasantly surprised with student demeanor. Young people freely asked questions and showed a genuine concern for answers. To me, they seem to have been unduly criticized by an impatient adult society rather than been given wise counsel. They have more freedom, and I think they are generally capable of handling those freedoms. They are more mature than their counterparts of my generation. They have to be to survive. And one of the reasons I called that little section out is because guess what we hear about the millennials right now?
Yeah.
We hear the same thing about the millennials. And maybe just everyone should give a little moratorium on themselves. I'm going to start imposing more moratoriums on myself. I think that's a great idea. You know, we're going to start definitely doing that. Self-imposed moratoriums on things. Yeah, you hear, and you know, me with, you know, we work with a lot of businesses and companies, and people will ask us about, you know, we got these millennials, and it's so hard to lead them. And I say, oh, why is that? Because they want to understand why they're doing what they're doing? Because they want to know what the goal and purpose of their job is? That's nothing new. Oh, because they want to step up and run things? I want that person working for me. So, yeah, put a little moratorium.
Right.
Back to the book. While in prison, I had a lot of time to think. The same question kept popping in my mind. What am I doing here? I'm 10,000 miles from home, cooped up in a communist prison camp, unable to enjoy all the wonderful freedoms I was sent here to protect. My first answer was obvious. I'm fighting for my country. I'm serving the United States of America. I'd learned in school that America was purple mountain majesties and amber waves of grain. That it was Congress and the executive and the judiciary. These were self-evident, but I had to get more personal than that. America had to mean more. It had to relate to my own freedoms, the product of nearly 200 years of a pioneering spirit. My nation is a skinny kid who climbs on his bike before dawn to sling newspapers. My country is a librarian who sits behind glasses with pencil in her hair and is quick to find answers to my questions. My homeland is a truck driver who smiles down from his cab and signals me through the intersection. My America is a personal friend, and I am proud to serve her. And you go on to say that there must be 1,000 definitions for freedom. Mine is simple. Freedom is the ability to walk through the door. It's not the act of walking through. That's proof of freedom. It's not going to church or speaking one's mind or demonstrating in the streets. Freedom is the ability to choose whether to go to church, to step up on a soapbox, to carry placards. Now that I am released, again, I move about at will. I say what I wish. I criticize and take criticism. I feel freer now than ever before because I know what freedom is. I appreciate those freedoms because I was once denied them. And is there anybody that appreciates freedoms more than people that have had those freedoms denied?
Probably not.
Is there any way to transfer the appreciation for those freedoms? I mean, I'm doing my darndest.
You're
here.
doing your darndest, and we're in the same business. You know, I speak a couple of times a week all over the country, have since I came home, trying to impress this on people. But the truth is, there's no way that you or I can put people in that situation that we've been in and make them feel the way they feel. There's no way I could deny a person a freedom. I do corporate workshops as you do, and I'll put a person in a room by themselves with nothing there for 15 minutes, and they go crazy. You know.
Do you take their phone away from them?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. You could cut that down to 5 minutes
exactly.
with my kids.
Exactly. Yeah.
They're going nuts.
And so there's very little. Well, I should say it this way. It's difficult to make that transfer, to make a person appreciate freedom when they've never lost theirs. And all I can do is tell the story.
Yeah.
And I appreciate your helping me tell the story.
I'm trying over here. I'm going to, occasionally I just have to go a little bit of the distance on some stuff that I have to read in here. And this is one of those situations to wrap up, because I think this is just such an important message for me, for everybody. Back to the book. I'm often asked, how did you do it, Commander? How could you take 6 years of filth, brutality, and loneliness? I could have never done it. My answer is, of course you could. As a matter of fact, you rub elbows each day with people who have done it. We weren't the only prisoners. Millions of Americans have experienced the manacles of the body or shackles of the mind. They've been bound by unfortunate external circumstances, automobile accidents, disease, natural disaster, paralyzing grief from the loss of a loved one. They have suffered deprivation and humiliation. Once a victim of misfortune, many become too insecure to open doors. Instead, they allow themselves to wallow in despair. They become alcoholics, drug addicts, unfaithful wives or husbands, unruly children. Inability to face personal responsibility is often hidden in seemingly innocent pastimes. Golf, poker, television, sleep. These diversions spawn intense feeling of guilt and worthlessness. And some victims ultimately isolate themselves and become despondent. A few commit suicide. I had ample opportunity to damn society and curse my fate. But what good would that have done? To be sure, the Vietnamese would not have released me simply because I felt sorry for myself. On the contrary, they used every available means to make that happen. A despondent prisoner was a prime candidate for communist indoctrination. My secret for enduring 6 years of hell is really not a secret at all. First and foremost, I had faith in God, knowing that His will would be done. I never doubted that I could persevere. I simply trusted God's promise to answer my prayers. I also loved my country, its people, and its freedoms. I realized that because of the human element, mistakes could be made. But in growing up, I had discerned that most of the people in this great land are honorable and compassionate. Second, I had self-discipline. It would have been easier to avoid torture by succumbing to North Vietnamese interrogation. It would have been easier to assume helplessness by blaming an evil world. I could have rationalized myself into mental and physical paralysis. However, strict self-obedience gave me the ability to persevere. Finally, I had pride. I was proud to know an omnipotent God. I was proud of my country and its heritage. I was proud of my family. I was proud of myself. Faith, discipline, pride. Each of these nurtured the others. Combined, they allowed me to endure. I have joined the ranks of millions of Americans who have applied heroic principles in overcoming hardships. Every day, a disabled veteran steps away from his wheelchair. Every day, a life is resumed after a death in the family. Friendships erase loneliness. Addicts throw away the crutch of alcohol or drugs or obsessions. Every day, someone discovers how to love life, no matter what the obstacle. Every day, someone sees the light at the end of the tunnel. These ordinary Americans are not held in esteem as heroes, yet they have suffered grave misfortune and have recovered, just as I. So you see, I'm no hero. And I think it's that very humility, sir, that makes you a hero, because you are certainly a hero to me and certainly a hero to this great nation.
Well, thank you for that. And I throw those bouquets right back at you. You're one of my heroes.
I don't accept, sir. Not at all. As you look at other people's struggle, with all the things that you mentioned, the drugs, the alcohol, the obsession, the depression after the loss of a loved one, how can people find the faith, the discipline, the pride that you talk about? What do you think is that kernel, that starting point that allows those things to grow in someone's mind so that they can overcome these kind of challenges?
I think the first seed that you have to plant and nurture in your mind is that you still have the choice, that you still are in control. Because I think so many people that get bogged down with these challenges we're talking about assume that there's no way out, that it's somebody else's problem or somebody else has to affect their lives, and they feel like they have no control over the outcome. And so I think that's the beginning part of it, is that each of us makes decisions every day that control our destiny. And it's not the things around us. It's our approach to the things around us. It's our definition of the things around us. It's our willingness to accept a challenge and make choices about the things around us. And so if you can nurture that, if you can believe that, yes, I have control of my life. I am the master of my fate. I'm the captain of my soul. And if you can really believe that, then the rest is just a matter of the discipline it takes to work through it.
It's interesting. I was talking to your son Alex, and we were talking about how, as he was growing up and he was hearing your sort of philosophy of life and the world, and when he heard me on a podcast, and he started saying, "Wait a second, I've heard this kind of stuff before," and then we were talking about how I've kind of said that now that there's some, I hate to go so far as to say universal truths, but there's certainly some things in human nature and human life that are very similar across the board. And when you take people and you put them through this crazy thing of life, and you provide them with some similar challenges, they're going to come to very similar conclusions. And from what you just said, there's two things that you said that I say all the time. And number one, this perspective of, what's that initial spark to say, hey, I can take discipline, I can take pride. The first thing in my mind you got to say is like, okay, these problems that are happening, I got to take ownership of what I can do. I got to take ownership of my problems. Right. I can't blame this guy. I can't blame that guy. I got to take ownership of them. And that's the first thing. And then the other piece that you said that I say all the time is you got decisions to make. You got little decisions to make. And if you can make that right decision, if you can do the right thing at that moment in time, it's not going to change your life. That one decision won't change your life, but then you're going to, 3 minutes later, 30 seconds later, an hour later, you're going to make another decision. Mm-hmm. And can you hold the line and get yourself pointed in the right direction? And can you have the discipline to do that? Can you have the faith in yourself that you're going to make that happen? And can you have the pride? And Dick Winters talked about that too on the last podcast. Dick Winters from the 506 Band of Brothers. Mm-hmm. But one of the big things that he was concerned about with his men was if he saw them begin to lose pride. Mm-hmm. And how, hey, if I don't care what Echo thinks of me, if I come in here, I'm not ready for this podcast, and he's going to look at me like, oh, I guess Jocko's just letting it slide. And all of a sudden, if I don't care anymore, I don't care anymore. Now I'm not preparing. Now I'm not getting ready. And then you take someone in combat, and they start to lose pride, and all of a sudden they say, I don't care who sees me acting the wrong way, who sees me slacking off on a watch, who sees me not cleaning my weapon. If I don't care about that anymore, that's the beginning of that downward spiral. And pride is one of those things that you have to be careful of, because just like any other dichotomy that we have as human beings, yes, you can get so much pride that you no longer think you can do anything wrong, in which we know where that leads.
That's right.
And you can have not enough pride to keep yourself on the right path. Amazing stuff. Echo, Did you have any questions? Just wondering.
Yeah. Well, this one part I kind of wanted to reflect on that I thought was pretty important, even on a small, like the part where you were regarding the guards as in their own prison. You know, so you almost, like you said, that they had it worse than you did. So this one time my wife told me this story where she was in the checkout line, you know, in the store.
You got
a lot of stuff happens in the checkout line.
A lot of things happen in the grocery store.
Yeah,
with the Charles
a lot
family.
of lessons. So she found herself in the express line, but she had more than the 15 items, you know. And the guy behind her he was tripping the whole time though. So she's paying, she's trying to hurry up, and he's like, you know, what do you call it? Loud talking, like talking to the person next to him about my wife. So after the whole ordeal, it was kind of like a scene, you know. So my wife afterwards was like, "Oh, I hope you have a nice day," you know, like she left.
Wait,
so,
did she say it earnestly?
Yeah,
because that didn't sound real earnest the way you said it.
Well,
and I know your wife good enough to think that she probably.
Yeah, she was probably salty for sure. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like, "Hey, I hope you have a nice day." And she told me that story, and she was like, "But you know what? A big part of me was like, he has to go home with himself, you know, and I get to come home and be cool and have all my all this stuff." And I was like, dang, that's a good way to look at it, because he has to go home. He's probably pissed for the day, and
she gets to go home with 17 grocery items too after blazing through the checkout line.
blazing right through. It's true. Oh yeah, one question. You know when you got arrested when you bought that scooter, right? The Cushman.
He's been thinking about this for 3
Well,
hours.
because I've been in this experience, because you get the scooter, right? You pack your friend, right? And then the cops say stop you. That happened to us all the time. But why did they arrest you though? Is it like, hey, you guys can't do that, you're going to jail?
Well, it was rather unusual, I think, for these cops to see these two little guys. Yeah. You know, we were 13 and 14 years old, and we weren't very big to begin with, and the motor scooter was bigger than we were, and it's in the middle of the night, and I think they felt. They felt like there was something suspicious going on there.
Yeah, you guys took it. You guys stole it.
Well, all right, Echo. Sir, do you have anything else on that right there?
No.
Okay. No further details on the scooter rides.
No.
We got that cleared up.
We'll drop that.
Cushman.